societal issues are increasing in severity, but at the same time, improvements in technology are showing themselves in a greater force. So I investigated this. The key to this is using said technology to solve societal issues, which I investigated in the context of education technology and urban planning. I was prompted by Jay McGonigal's TED Talk and Marco Montgomery's article about urbanization, which let me put two and two together. I was guided by a simple question: to what extent can modern game-based educational programs prepare students to address the challenges posed by urbanizations, cities getting bigger? Now, cities getting bigger is indeed a pressing issue. According to Marco Montgomery, a population researcher at the Population Council Organization, most of the population growth of the world is going to be in big cities. And with figures reaching around 10 billion by 2050, that's a lot of big cities. And in the face of depleting natural resources, sustainable models of expansion are all the more important, which means we need more competent urban planners. But at the same time, we are seeing the emergence of digital game-based learning. Gaming is making its way into educational curriculums all over the world. This is exactly what we need because according to Zheng Wu, it's goal-oriented gameplay with balanced reward and penalty mechanics. In English, that's exactly what games like Call of Duty and Pac-Man have in common. You have fun while learning and doing stuff. That's not a fancy simulation used by urban planners. That's a consumer game called SimCity that was released in 2012. If this is adapted for the classroom, the implications on students in urban planning's future is huge. Thus, the argument. The introduction of digital game-based learning to relevant college majors is of paramount importance to the training of future urban planners. It's not just the fun factor, but the fact that it benefits three major skill sets that are crucial to urban planning. The first of which being the practical perspective. The unique nature of EGBL helps students develop concrete, demonstrable skills that a traditional textbook education simply can't, like creativity and problem solving. Now, Zheng Wu not only defined EGBL, he also ran his own study on the subject. In a course of 3 weeks, students were given access to a program where he administered frequent progress checks that quantified scores in creativity and problem solving. He saw that there were increasing scores after the 3 weeks, which meant that students were getting better at creativity and problem solving. This makes sense because in DGBL, as opposed to like a test, students aren't rigidly recalling information. In fact, they're encouraged to think about how that information might be applicable in real life contexts. Now, specifically, Mohammed Shalib bin Sujadi, a minister in Singapore's education ministry, specifically hones in on this concept of cost-benefit analysis to build off of Wu's research. Cost-benefit analysis, because DGBL has the penalty and reward mechanics, students are encouraged to maximize the reward while minimizing the penalty. Why is this important? Well, according to Isaac Hirabukapia, the Secretary General of UN Habitat, crucial aspects of urban planning, such as water conservation, energy distribution, and increasingly sustainable resource allocation, all require holistic frameworks that balances priorities and costs, which as urban planners need to be more capable in maximizing efficiency while minimizing environmental impact. This is creativity, this requires problem solving, but most of all, this requires cost-benefit analysis. DGBL will allow urban planners to practice those skills earlier on in their training so they become more competent when they actually take control of the expansion of major metropolitan areas. Now, the second perspective is the psychological one. Aside from the skills, students will develop a beneficial attitude towards solving problems on a large scale, like city planning. So, Jay McGonigal, a renowned American game designer, uses the term gamer's high to describe the sense of accomplishment that gamers get when achieving a virtual goal, like this guy with the steering wheel there. But this seems to explain a specific aspect of Wu's study that shows that students are actually more motivated to explore a larger variety of problems. So the satisfaction of accomplishing a goal makes students want to solve more problems, which makes sense. But this practice evolves into something called holistic problem solving. Students want to solve more problems and they end up viewing the issue in its entirety. And this is very important because Marco Montgomery says something about the tragedy of small cities. Small cities in the US, especially in the Midwest, are ignored in policymaking while the East Coast and West Coast get most of the policymaking, the brain power, and the funding. This is important because as the small cities also get bigger as population increases, especially in the Midwestern area, you can see the small lights, the problems associated with poor planning become all the more apparent. Everything from traffic to broken water systems to bad fire department coverage. All these small cities, if they lack attention now, become problems, bigger problems in the future. Now, holistic problem solving is key over here because urban planners need to view every issue as an equal. Small cities should get the same amount of funding as big cities, and this attitude towards addressing every problems before they come up will be very crucial in solving this very crucial aspect of urban planning. Now finally, the third perspective is the interpersonal one. Perhaps the most important is how urban planners can work together to make the dream work. Now, while other studies conducted by Wu, Sujai, and Xiaole all focus on the personal perspective, Emo Thirunayanan and Manuel Vilches took advantage of a competitive atmosphere to draw some social conclusions, as in how did gamers function socially. They observed an esports tournament, which is like any sports tournament but focused on a video game like League of Legends, and concluded that gamers develop better leadership and communication skills. Now, this is because the pressure of achieving a collective end goal makes interpersonal conflict quite inefficient. If people are squabbling over whose plan is better, that means they aren't going to get things done. The pressure forces students to develop better group work, become better group workers, as in streamlining the communication and being more open to contradictory ideals. While some may argue that Thirunayalan's observations are done in a competitive atmosphere and thus not applicable to the classroom, the same effect can be achieved by simply giving a group of students a virtual goal. DGBL is fundamentally a computer program and can be programmed to have many team-based exercises, so that concern is invalid. So, but why is this important? Because urban planning in the future is by no means a compartmentalized profession, as in they will have to work closely with experts from many different fields. Not in satellite imaging, population distribution, topography, sustainable energy. They need to be able to combine the knowledge from all of these professions to make good plans that will cover all aspects of city planning. But ultimately, you also have to work well in a group. If urban planners don't inform each other of their actions and mistakes pile up, that's pretty bad for the city that you're supposed to plan. DGBL offers prospective urban planners a chance to practice this teamwork and a chance to make mistakes without real-world applications, without real-world consequences. If they mess up, it doesn't mean the city's going to mess up. So in conclusion, DGBL has three main perspectives. They develop practical skills, they develop good psychological attitudes, and they develop great interpersonal interaction attitudes. And that becomes successful urban planners, which is why DGBL must be incorporated into college majors to train them for the better of the future of our cities. Thank you.